on time, so if you would all please rise as you are able, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of that could be better. Yeah, I agree. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Can we please have the clerk call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Wellender.
Here.
Vice Chair Gurney.
Present.
Councilmember Farrar Rivas.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Mayor Lowe.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this is a different sort of meeting than we're all used to having, where we're going to do some goal setting, and glad to have members of the public here. And so we'll start off with public comment. And because this is being recorded, I think we're going to have to ask you to come up to the microphone, I believe. I'm going to check with tech. Not necessary, I'm seeing. Therefore, if you just, stand and raise your hand or however. I see at the back of the room someone very familiar to us. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm pleased to see you all. I had a little glitch this past week, but I walked here from 5th Street East, so everything seems to be working.
That's great.
I'm here to, because I know your goal-setting session is going to get into some very specific and perhaps not so specific objectives and goals you'd like to see accomplished. I see sheets out there with 5 years on it, and that's great. I'm going to address a few things that are on my mind that I hope you will consider for your goals that has to do with the nearer term. Probably one very important one to me is I know you're in the process of recruiting for and hiring a new city manager. And this would not be something I think you would put on your goal-setting session because it's so imminent, but I do think it's important. And I hope in recruiting and interviewing your candidates, you will stress the collaborative nature of the relationship, that you want a city manager who is tremendously communicative, perhaps overly communicative. You want one that will never subvert or otherwise dismiss the authority of the city council to the staff who the manager supervises, and is a team player. And so I'm sure that you have many other standards you'll apply, and I have confidence in the process you've undertaken. The second thing I want to mention has to do with the city finances. I had the unfortunate experience of first joining the city council and discovering that the city was not only out of cash, but was $1 million in the hole in 1994. And it was the result of inadequate and improperly applied financial procedures and financial department standards. Now, I know you're governed by GAAP, the government-approved accounting provisions under the law, and you do retain an outside auditor who comes in and audits your books every year, but the outside auditor relies basically on the city finance department for its information. And as the old expression goes, garbage in, garbage out. If your financial information isn't secure, if it isn't accurate, if it doesn't truly represent the condition of the city, it's not going to be any help to the auditor. In 1994, when we hired a new auditor and replaced the city manager and created our finance department for the first time in the city's history, that auditor had to make $41 million in adjustments and came up with 21 reportable conditions. It was a disastrous auditing report, and it showed just how far things can get out of whack. So my concern is that we've got, of course, a lot of instability right now in the staffing of the city council, and I mean the city staff. We've got a lot of jobs to replace. Not the least among those are issues in the accounting department. So I hope one of the goals that you will put in is a real focus on the city's accounting department and finances. If you don't have a handle on the finances, everything else can fall apart. It's really one of the worst experiences of my life in public office to discover that we had no cash. We had to open an account at a local bank just to make payroll for the city staff. So-
Unfortunately, Larry, I hate to tell you this, we're still at, I heard my 3-minute warning go off, so if you could just conclude your remarks.
I will finish up with this.
Thank you.
I have in the past circulated to the council some affordable housing revenue generating ideas. I am going to redistribute these to you only because I think you can choose among them.
Why don't you give them to the clerk and she'll make sure
That's
we all
great.
have them. Thank you.
You can choose among them, they're just my ideas, but the fact is that the housing element you're going to approve later today is a great document. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of what the city accomplished. It doesn't build any houses. The only thing that builds houses in this world that I live in is money. And if you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to do very much.
Thank you.
So I've given you these ideas in the hopes
Appreciate
that we can generate substantial revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I know we went over, so I'm going to give everybody the same grace period. Yes, sir, please.
Hi, David Acker, welcome City Council and Mayor. Tyree Nichols, George Floyd, Oscar Grant, and close to home, Andy Lopez, David Ward, David Palas Chavez. These names are recognizable for all of us. On October 5th in 2020, the presentation on the police department's use of force policies was given to the city council by then police chief. And now we have an all-new council, so many of you have seen that. In that presentation, it talks about how the city contracts with the sheriff's department for the policing. And as such, it is the sheriff's department's policies and procedures which apply for the use of force within the city limits. After the use of force, there's administrative investigation. This includes the Independent Office of Law Enforcement Review and Outreach, IOLERO. Measure P improved IOLERO's oversight. However, I think it doesn't go enough. Needs some looking at there. There are a set of letters of agreement between the county and the sheriff's office's union. And John Alder, the new director of IOLERO, said, and I quote, "Under the current letters of agreement, IOLERO can't start its investigation until after the criminal investigation is done, and the sheriff's administrative personnel investigation is also done. We would rather IOLERO start at the same time as the sheriff's administrative personnel investigation. Concurrent investigations would ensure that the sheriff and the IOLERO are both doing their best, most timely work." So I'd ask you as a goal for this coming year, not within the 5 years, for the city council to get an updated or new presentation by the new police chief as to what is, the current policies. And then maybe speak a little bit about the letters of agreement. Because right now, the letters of agreement require IOLERO to wait. And I think it might be the possibility of the city council to come up with a resolution to renegotiate the letters of agreement such that IOLERO can begin investigation alongside with the sheriff's department. I think this would be best all around, so thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Yeah.
Please.
Mine is not as well prepared. I'm Josette Rosenker, and I have actually several items, and I'm, like I said, I'm not as well prepared. I'm a Springs resident, so sometimes speaking to the city council, it's like, well, why are you here? But I think because so much has been going on in the Springs where we dovetail together, that I think that it's important, those of us that live out there, we come here, this is our center, we come here for all the events, we're a part of it too. And I think that each of the things that I want to talk about we have to balance between those two places, because the Springs and the city have to do their part. Housing is one of the most important issues, and I think that we have to start looking at 100% affordable projects, because what we're getting is just more and more and more market rate development that's not really meeting our needs. And I've seen cooperation here as it revolves around homelessness, because Homeless Action is building in the Springs, but a commercial property owner, Dave Jefferson, has helped them out. So we're working together already on those things. And then we have the elephant in the room, the Maxims. We stopped a potential giant hole from being dug in the Springs, a parking garage that would have remained a giant hole with a cyclone fence around it for 5 years. So this is one thing where together we need to start thinking about this property that's being bought by them and being neglected. And a lot of it is here in the city. I think the majority of it is in the city. Perhaps looking at commercial property vacancy taxes. And then a cannabis dispensary. The city is poised and ready to go. So there's really no reason not. This is a viable business where we're going to have good applicants. The process is already, you've been through it once before. And just the other day, I did a quick look for the product I use. Spark carries 16 of these tinctures that some of us old people use because we don't smoke this stuff. And another dispensary, the one I go to in Santa Rosa, carries 54. So I think it's time to bring this viable business in. And last, I'll go back to my husband's thing. I had a long, really good talk with John Alden, the new ILARO director. And I feel that a resolution to tell the county, yes, please renegotiate these letters of agreement and let ILARO do the job that Measure P, that 67% of us voted for. We'll all be safer. We'll all feel better about law enforcement, I think, if we do that. And so those are all my things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any further comment? Yes, please.
Bill Latimer, Grant Court, Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group. Good afternoon to the City Council and staff and everyone. As an advocate for medical cannabis for over 30 years now, I've spoken with cancer patients who found relief in medical cannabis, listened to those with serious depression who found comfort from it, and know people who were addicted to opioids and feel certain it has helped their lives. There is a myriad of ways that cannabis benefits so many, and this is why we campaign for better access for patients and consumers. Again, we remind that we are now 2 months overdue for reviewing the success of the first dispensary and beginning the process for the second one. The RFP and application are ready, finished, ready to go. This process should be easier and have less impact on staff time because the City Council and staff have been through this before. The impact of the first dispensary has been positive. To our knowledge, there have been no parking issues, neighborhood complaints, or problems with law enforcement. The first dispensary has generated $115,000 in tax revenue in its first 8 months and could gross over $4 million in its first year. A short story, if I may. In 2016, as a member of the Sonoma County Growers Alliance, I attended several city council meetings. It was disheartening to watch Ken Brown, former mayor and longtime advocate for medical cannabis, stand before the council each and every meeting, hat in hand, asking to please put discussion of a local dispensary on its agenda. Finding no satisfaction in the council chambers, Ken and his late wife, Jewel Mathiasen, a well-known advocate in her own right, began collecting signatures to further their goal, and it is from this that our own Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group was formed. But it was 3 more years of moratoriums and roadblocks before Sonoma's residents could finally exercise their right to safe local access to cannabis. Sadly, Jewel wasn't here to see that the city approved its first ever commercial cannabis business. She had passed away 4 months earlier. But you can bet, if she was still with us, she'd be all over this second dispensary issue, as loud and fierce as ever. It's really time for the city to exercise its promise to our citizens and issue the RFP. This is the opportunity to not only fulfill Jules and Ken's legacy, but to help positively define the legacy of this city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, sir, please.
Can I stay seated? Would that be
I
okay?
think as long as we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Good. Okay. Richard Silver, I live in the Springs.
Excellent.
And I'm going to follow up with the gentleman in the bright red sweater for Valentine's Day. He's also wearing it because red means stop and think. I'm going to talk about money. And I'm going to talk about money relative to the 4 businesses that the city council operates. A cemetery, a water department, a Tuesday night market, and a movie theater. Most of whom lose money. Tuesday night market, $37,000. Movie theater, $35,000. I don't know, because I haven't been able to talk to the dead, how much the cemetery lost or how much the water department makes or loses, but it's regulated by the state at 15% over cost to deliver. Revenue from housing, when I spoke with the prior planning department manager, I said the 48 unit building on Broadway, from the time it was approved, securing the land, going through design, process, approval, spade in the ground, occupation by tenants. How long was that? In excess of 5 years. What does the city get during that 5-year period? Complaints about parking and noise, etc. Not much revenue. There's no property tax revenue. Substantial on an unbuilt property. Now I have a solution to abrogate your negative income and expenses vis-a-vis your 4 businesses. I don't know who here on the council is a business person, but I think you all have expertise that may be separate from being business people. As my colleague here with lots of hair said, the city council has received, with no staff time, no expenditure of money, over $100,000 in tax revenue in the first 8 months of the very first dispensary permitted in this town, with no issues from the police, from fire, from children, from juvenile detention, etc. If you had a second business, and by the way, this is the only retail business permitted in the city of Sonoma that is prohibited from having a competitor. 31 tasting rooms, multiple bars, how many grocery stores? It meets the needs of the community because it affords choice. I haven't seen any of those businesses go out of business. Maybe the restaurants have had a tough time. That's a separate issue. If you have business one that generates $4 million per annum at 4% to you, that's $160,000. What's your cost to obtain that? Nothing. If you had 2 dispensaries, after the first 2 years of both of them operating, you might have $300,000 to $350,000 of revenue. Most of that will offset all your negatives. And while that is going on, and as Gil said, you're ready to go. So consider having a revenue generation at no cost to the city by merely following the procedures you've already done. The paper is ready, and thus I speak. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you so
Commander?
much.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments? Mr. Demler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Robert Demler, 649 First Street West. And thank you for allowing me to sit. It's not a pretty sight, my getting up. It takes more of my 3 minutes. Last spring, during the budget process, I presented a long list of my druthers about what would be nice in the city of Sonoma. I'm not going to go through that this time, except to say a couple of things. I would appreciate the city, before I forget, and usually cannabis is not in my repertoire. History is, but I certainly agree. All the candidates last October, I guess it was, in the public forum at the community center, raised their hand when they were asked if they would support a second dispensary. So I encourage the American open market process. Anyway, what I want to say is I want to say thanks to all of the city staff who kept things going so well during all of our management issues, senior management issues. I do appreciate it. I'm usually speaking on behalf of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, and I do wish to thank from that perspective as well. I would appreciate the city becoming a little more proactive with the hotel tax for whomever dispenses. As I've said a couple of times in public meetings, Sonoma is well known. I've been in many obscure places in the world, and it's not unusual for people to know about Sonoma in those places. So I would like to, if you would consider spending more money on the town itself, improvements as opposed to marketing. And in closing, again, I want to emphasize how well the city staff has managed things during this challenging couple of years we've had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Lowe, members of council. I'm Mark Bodenhammer here speaking on behalf of the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. As you might guess, I am here to ask that you keep our small businesses in mind as you guys are setting your goals for the upcoming year and 5 years and beyond. The last few years, as you guys already know, have been extremely challenging, starting with fires, with power outages, COVID. But we recently did a survey of our restaurants, and I was surprised to learn that over 50% of the restaurants we surveyed were not profitable in 2022. So I thought, as we saw more and more people coming back to the valley, that these businesses were all starting to see profits and catch up from 2020 and 2021 when they were certainly losing money. But that wasn't the case. Increased costs, inflation, lower number of visitors and residents that are spending less money per visit because of the economy receding a little bit are huge issues. Staffing still continues to be an issue, and housing is the obvious solution to that. So these things are still continuing to hold back our local economy, and all of the issues we're bringing up today, it really is tax revenue that's going to be the solution to really most of our problems here in Sonoma. So not just restaurants, this is something that's definitely impacting large healthcare providers like our hospital. They're having a hard time finding housing for people in their services. Local serving businesses like gyms, grocery stores, businesses like that, and even our nonprofit community. They can't find staff. There are communities or nonprofits that serve underserved people in our community that are having a harder and harder time filling the needs, buying groceries, buying equipment, hygiene equipment, things like that. So anyway, it continues to be an issue, and just want to keep them in mind as we make our plan. Finally, the cannabis business has been brought up a couple of times. We participated in screening the previous candidates the last time. We're more than happy to do that if you guys do choose to proceed with the second dispensary. It's not a bad idea for the community. So thank you, and appreciate you guys doing it today and involving the public.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, please.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members and staff. I'm going to remain seated because it'll double my time if I anyhow, I'm Carrie Ellis Paniala, and I live at the south end of First Street West at Beasley Way. And I'm here to ask you today, as a supporter and advocate of cannabis, to put that as one of your goals, the second I think it's very important, and the RFP is already in place. Spark has proven that it can make a sizable profit, and the city coffers have profited from gaining almost $116,000, my understanding, in taxes in less than a year. And as Richard mentioned, I'm surprised that there are city entities that are running at a loss, such as the farmer's market, which I can't believe, because to me that place, Tuesday nights is packed, and the Sebastiani Theater, maybe not so much, but those are entities that could be helped out with an additional second dispensary and their tax money that we would be getting. And I just read in the Friday Sonoma Index that our food editor noted that how many great bakeries we have right here in town, which is true. If I wake up and feel like having a donut or a croissant, I've got lots of choices. And I feel that with cannabis, I should have a choice. If I, at some point with all my medical issues, want some pain relief, either with the ointment, tincture, or tea, for medical pain, I should be able to have that choice. Anyhow, I think that our food editor would also agree with my feelings on cannabis plant. She's a plant advocate also, as I understand, and has started the garden project in all of our schools. So I think we all need to consider this as a plant, and plants do offer many medical benefits, and that's what a democratic capitalist society is all about, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any further public comments? Yes, please. Claire.
Hi there. My name is Claire Snowbot. I'm a resident of Sonoma. I live on Oak Lane. First, my apologies for arriving late. I thought that this meeting was going to be offered on Zoom, as with many people, but learned when I went on the computer to log in that that wasn't the case. So I scurried down, and here I am. I'm going to talk today about an issue that I've raised before council many times before over the last 3 years, which is public-private partnerships. And while tax revenues are a great way for us to add to our revenue stream, there is an even more effective way that we can work on by having public-private partnerships in our city. They range from things such as having a park conservancy, which I've mentioned multiple times, to having different projects that the public can also contribute to things as simple as having a season of sharing fund. Since 1986, San Francisco has had a season of sharing fund that has raised over $177 million to be distributed to folks in need. We have nothing like that in Sonoma. I don't understand why, because we have an incredible disparity here between people who have more than they need and people who have less than they need. But we don't have a methodology to bridge that gap yet. In addition, related to that, we have a responsibility of for-profit business owners and investors in our community to be giving back our fair share. But again, we're slow when it comes to recognizing the different ways in which we can create things in addition to tax revenue that will increase the funds in our city and allow us to pursue a lot of the projects that I know you all are passionate about. I've been working in this sector for over 20 years. Most of my time has been spent assisting folks in San Francisco. I live here in Sonoma now. I've offered many, many times the skill set of myself, my staff, and others, and I hope this year will be the year that we really take advantage of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you so much for showing up in person. We appreciate that. This is a little bit of a different style of meeting where the council is going to be very much engaged in forming its own priorities for the short term and the long term. And so thank you for your indulgence as we focus on what it is to create an agenda for ourselves. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our interim city manager to kind of give us an overlook of how we're going to proceed. Thank you.
Real brief, if I may, Madam Mayor. Our audio people told me, Bob told me that because of the tree cutting, that if we can speak louder, he said the audio is not picking up quite as, it's not as loud. So if we can just make sure we speak loud because of the tree cutting. Thank you.
We'll do our best. Thank
I
you.
did not arrange for the tree cutting to be happening at the same time. I'm glad it's being done, I'm sure. Let me go through a couple of things. Thank you so much. Thank you for the public. This is being streamed, so if you want to watch it later, you can.
Recording.
Excuse me, it's being recorded, not streamed. Tonight's meeting will be back on Zoom.
Great.
When we have the housing element being the sole comment for tonight.
Excellent.
This part, there's a couple of things I want to do that the council has talked with me about. First, I want to acknowledge and thank the council and particularly the mayor who came in to me, talked with me yesterday about how this agenda was going to flow. She's even more experienced than me about this stuff, so it was very, very helpful. And all of your comments have been helpful in putting this together, so I do appreciate it very much. First, let me just, you see this up here, what we did, and this was a staff recommendation, is that I said, how do we get to the point where people say, well, you stole my idea? I heard this from some of the council members about our selection of our draft picks for the various commissions. So each of you get these sheets. Sheet 1 is the 5 years, and you're going to go up there. It's not going to be a sedentary discussion. You're going to go up there, and you do your 5 years, and then you have 5 dots where you can see what each other's put up there, and you go around and look at the others, and you put your dots up there. Now, the reason that there's a limit on dots is that there's a limit on how many things we can do beyond all the things we're already doing. So we're trying to get, underneath that is 1 year. Underneath that is 5 months. Now, you wonder why you have 3 dots for 5 months. 5 months because it's now February. So February through June fiscal year. The reason you have 3 dots is I'm conceding 2 things. One, you want a new city manager within the next 5 months. And 2, we want to do a decent planning for celebration for the 200 years of the mission and the city, which we've already started doing some work on. So it'll be the other 3. If you are desperate, you can just put your initials up if you feel that you don't have enough to do that. But you'll be up and down, and then Monique will be keeping track and try to summarize. So when you're on your break, she'll summarize so we can see what really emerged as the 5 years is the dream time, the visionary time. 1 year informs our budget. 5 months informs what we're going to do now. And it coincides with my time here. So it kind of is my direction as well. I wanted to explain what staff is here. Obviously, the clerk has a role she plays. Monique is at every meeting. Monique is also going to help me keep this organized. Then there's always been a question about who really is the leadership team here. Well, your leadership team is here. You see that long list of managers. Well, most of those managers don't supervise anybody. They're analysts and so on. And it's a list of people who don't get overtime. But the people who really run our organization, our public works director, our police chief, Wayne does everything. Wayne is development services, emergency services, technology, and so on. Laura's our interim, we're on the same track, planning director. So she does all of that stuff with the Planning Commission and things related. And as the council knows, we are looking at merging that into one department going forward at some point, probably next budget year. And then I'm so pleased that our fire chief, who I really want to be a part of the leadership team, is part of the leadership team, even though he has his own board, who has their own election, and so on. And, but this is the people who actually work with me to lead the organization. We've also had a question about, this is just details, what does Rita do versus what does Rebecca do? Rita basically takes care of the food stuff that you had ordered. She takes care of business cards. She takes care of copies. Everything else related to Form 700s, FPPC, elections, agendas, and so on, comes back through the clerk. Other stuff comes through me, and I try to make sure it gets delegated out to the right people. There was also a question about, I'm now on a city committee. The mayor has put me on a committee. I'm now the alternate. What is my job? You can define it as you will. If it's something you're really interested in, participate. Go to the meetings, keep track, talk with the person who's been appointed, so that when you do have to fill in, you're up to speed. If you're something that, yeah, I'm as helpful to the mayor, I'll go if I have to go. That's fine too. It's really your choice. And I know some of you wished you were appointed, so that's, make sure you can go ahead and go. They're all very important committees or they wouldn't be there. But some are more interesting to you than others. So, and I know some of you have already started going to the meetings. Some are on Zoom. So it does vary. We had a question about when do the commissions meet that we appointed people to, and who staffs the commissions. So I've had the clerk prepare this. It was 8 by 11 and I couldn't quite read it with my eyes, so I asked her to make big copies. So these are big copies. You'll see who's on the commission, how they got on there, who staffs it, when they meet, what time they meet. You got your newest one starting next week. February 8th, I think, will be the Climate Action Commission. And if there's a question about, yes, you are invited. I mean, if you want to come by a commission meeting and see what they're doing, and I believe the clerk told me that the commissions are also streamed. So you can watch them from home if you want to. You just click on through the website, go to meetings, and then you go to the meeting itself, and it sets you up to go. But this, for the council, this is who's on, who staffs. Now I'm evaluating with people who staffs, just to make sure that it's balanced somehow. So that's background that it was requested by council members and the mayor. And that's what.
This will be updated as some of the information comes forward, like your pros.
Just speak up loudly.
Like your pros committee that hasn't set their meeting times yet. So it acknowledges on here if they haven't set or when it'll be set. as well.
Rebecca, could you share that electronically with the staff as well?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can get this around.
Yeah, we will, and it'll be posted part of the.
And I think the Parks, Recreation, Open Space is the only one that really hasn't set a time.
That's correct.
Okay. And you'll be staffing that one, or you and one of your team?
Oh, and, well, we don't have traffic safety down there.
I think Public Works will be doing that, since the parks are in your world. So, any questions on any of that, or any questions about who does what before we launch into the process? One more thing I should say real quickly. I put the 200th anniversary down on the agenda to give us an example of how we can work through a priority issue. And it's one, because we're working on it now, it's very relevant. I've assigned Jenny to help me make it happen. So, yes?
Just a kind of a process question.
Yeah.
all the council members receive an email from a citizen at the same time. Is there a protocol in terms of how we respond to that? And
That's a very good question.
And if not, maybe we could come to an agreement.
Yeah, it's when it comes to city council, I'm not usually copied, except I get everything that comes to city council.
Usually what I tend to do, and you know, that's a great question, because I think it just came up fairly recently.
Just came up, the Cub
And
Scouts.
that when I respond out of an abundance of caution, I don't reply all, and I respond to that person. And, but the problem with that then is, then another person might respond, you know, and so forth. But, so we have to figure that out. Usually, because we don't want to reply all, I mean, reply all is just kind of, I mean, no one likes reply all under most circumstances, right? But, you know, you just have to, you can reply, just reply to that person directly and not copy anyone, so that we can avoid whatever.
You can always copy me, and I can
There you go,
kind
and
of let the
that's a
others know.
perfect solution.
We had another one that came today from an 8th grader.
Yes.
Who wants to come to the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, and I replied.
And,
So,
but we just don't let it hang, though.
right, I know. So what I need to do is let everyone know I've replied. I don't need to do the substance of it, because that would get into the Brown Act part, but I could at least.
Right, we do have to avoid the Brown Act
Right,
issues.
so I'll just let you know, and if someone else jumps on the email first and they've replied, do the same thing. Just say, I've replied to so-and-so.
You can always CC me on.
Yeah.
Well, I think the mayor should reply to all of the emails.
I'm not opposed to
And when I'm
that.
gone, I make the vice mayor. So.
I think the vice mayor should be in charge of all ties.
I do try to reply.
I know you do.
When, and I do, to the emails. If for nothing else, in saying thank you so much, I've received your
No,
comments.
that's a good,
But I will try to copy the city manager so that everyone else knows that I've.
unfortunately, we all meet regularly, individually, so we can,
But if there's ever a question about it, just, you know, contact me directly and say, have you
Have you
replied to this, or I'm
responded? Yes.
interested in this, or whatever. Just don't reply all. That's all, the only thing.
any other who does what's? right
And
now?
by the way, I asked for this section because there was, you know, usually at these sort of retreat, goal-setting things, there's all kinds of exercises that, you know, kind of are, I don't know, kind of warm and fuzzy kind of things to make sure that we all like each other and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, you know, we already all like each other just fine, good enough. What I really want is some context. And I think that sometimes it's hard, we've got a new majority on the council, and instead of trying for, you know, lofty goals of, you know, world peace or whatever we're trying for, let's just try to figure out how to answer our emails, who's in charge of what, and then maybe that will, you know, eliminate some of the angst that some of us feel as new. I know as a new mayor, I sometimes, I have these questions. That's why I asked for this.
Yeah, that's why,
You
these
know?
questions came from the mayor to
Yeah.
be shared with you all.
Right, because I just think it's helpful if everybody knows, you know, just how to get through the day, basically.
Yes, Patricia?
Yeah.
But if it's of something that's particular interest to you, one can reply if they wish and
Sure.
just
Yeah.
CC Mark.
Yeah,
And then Mark has the overview.
Sure,
Yes.
and he can always give me a heads up on it.
Yeah, I
as well.
tried, I meet the mayor every week to kind of keep up on things.
Absolutely.
And what I've usually done in the past, it's been a short period of time, but it's still in the past.
I'll have
Is-
1 month on Thursday.
Is now I CC to Mark, but I would forward it to someone that I felt was the responsible person at City Hall.
Yeah,
to be
that's
taken
all right
care
too. You did
Sure.
that with your housing element
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
But you copied me as well.
Yeah.
You don't like surprises, I don't like surprises, so we share
Yeah,
that.
no.
Yeah.
Do not like surprises.
But I do really enjoy our conversations. So I thank you for that.
And thank you for, I mean, I think everybody has felt really comfortable about sitting down with you or any of the staff and ask questions, and I'm having a really good feeling about that, so.
Good.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if there's, any other sort of nuts and bolts before we go on, this is our meeting.
This is your meeting.
This is our opportunity to, it's hard to plan for the future when you're not really sure, on, how do things work, and who's on this committee and all this sort of thing. So if there's any other sort of nuts and bolts questions, this is a good time to ask them. Yes, please.
So the only comment I would have is in regards to kind of things that you start out for people to kind of get to know each other, is that Surface is not for people to like each other. That's not what it's about. It actually helps people get into a right brain way of thinking, and allows for people, when you're going into a session like this, to get out of that left brain thinking, to get into the right brain thinking. It actually provides more opportunity for you to have more creative thinking. So it's not a method to get people to like each other. It's a method to get people to
No, I know, and I meant that rather facetiously, but I know what you mean.
We're going to cut out the warm and fuzzy stuff and get into the right brain, left brain.
I taught for many years. I taught at Sonoma High. I've been at the first day of school and had any number of icebreakers and right brain, left brain, Briggs, things, whatever. And so I just kind of felt like, because we were not really just us, we were having with the community, that we would be a little bit more context oriented.
Right.
And there may be another opportunity to be more right brain oriented. Have I got the right part of the brain?
You do.
Okay, good.
I think you do.
Just don't watch the movie
So
Severance.
we'll go from that. But
that's
I just have to say I'm more of a nuts and bolts kind of person. I just I understand Maslow's hierarchy, and I understand you can't get to self-actualization if you don't know where to park your car. So I want to get through those phases first. And then once everybody can figure out where to park their car and how to answer their emails and who's on a committee and whatever, perhaps we will get to that self-actualization that we all care about so much. But at the moment, I'm happy with getting the nuts and bolts.
And I should let the council know that Rebecca and our attorney are organizing a training session for all of our commissioners.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
So that is happening as we speak. I think you meet with the
We're
attorney
meeting
tomorrow
tomorrow.
and tighten it up. So that is happening because there's a lot going. You have her world when you appoint all these commissioners is everybody gets Form 700s. Everybody has to go through the AB 1, 2, 3, 4 ethics training. Everybody has to go through harassment training and so on. So
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what Form 700s are, these are the statements of economic interest, commonly referred to as conflict of interest statements or those sorts of things. So so all of us have to do that.
Yeah.
But people on committees have to also disclose their economic interests, when they're appointed to the committee, which some people, is quite a shock to them when they receive these forms, because they just thought, I'm just giving my time and, all of a sudden here's this legal thing that's filed with the Fair Political Practices Commission. And so it takes a lot of work to educate people, and this is part of the transparency of government that everybody is so much for. We're all for it, but it does require a lot of paperwork. And so getting all that done, thank you to the clerk for all of her hard work on
she'll
that.
be.
And thank you to all the people who are on all these committees and commissions.
Oh, we really, it's wonderful to have this many people involved. It's just
really
absolutely
is.
wonderful.
It really is.
So from our end, what success would look like when we're finished today is some real clarity on what's important to you, particularly for the 5 months and the 1 year. Because I think, each year you may want to update your 5-year picture.
Yeah.
So being clear on that helps us, because we'll still do our daily stuff. But we can ratchet up some of the things. And I can tell you that our first cut of looking at city manager candidates is the closed session on February 15th at 4 o'clock. You'll be getting a binder with the candidates, and you'll be able to narrow down to the ones you want to actually talk to. But the report is we have a pretty strong pool so far. The deadline is February 2nd, so it should even be stronger, but you'll be selecting the ones that you want to talk to.
Great,
Okay?
fantastic.
And that talking will be in early March.
That's great.
All right?
Yes, thank you.
Any
for
questions
that
about
update.
any of this before we get you out of your chairs?
Yeah, and I like getting out of my chair.
Yes, sir.
I do have one. Well, before we get out of the
Yeah.
chairs, early on in the campaign, some of us attended the city council meeting where they talked about their goals for the remaining part of their terms in previous council. And in that discussion, it sounded to me like there were a number of goals that were still out there that it seems to me that we'd want to kind of know, and maybe our two council members that were there can recall, but what have we committed to or discussed as a city council collectively as an organization prior to this council being seated? I mean, obviously, we could just ignore everything that was discussed previously, but were there any goals that we should be looking at as a result of the previous council's thoughts and commitment?
I did not include any of those, so we would have a fresh start. I'm presuming that the Find a City Manager was still in that pool. I think Mayor Lowe and former Mayor Ding were part of that, so I'm counting on them if there's something that was really there. But this is a fresh council, this is a new council, and I'd like to get your thinking. So that's why I didn't want to spend a lot of time on what the previous council did.
Right. Well, and I really appreciate the question.
That's a great question.
And, you know, I think that if we could find minutes or notes for that, and perhaps circulate it to the council after this meeting, just as kind
No,
of, just as
it's
a
a
check.
good suggestion.
Just
We
to
can do
check
that.
on,
Yeah,
you know, and
we have that. I
because
know you do.
this isn't going to be the last time we're going to talk about our goals.
No.
I mean, I don't want anyone to think, oh, God, you know, run out the room and say, oh my God, I forgot to talk about housing.
No.
You know, don't worry about it. There will be other opportunities.
As soon as that budget process, and you'll be getting the schedule coming out probably
So
next week.
let's
you're
do
gonna
this
it.
like just completely fresh.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of the ideas will be very similar, if not identical. And then let's circulate what the other, the previous council did,
Their
so that
pens
when we
are-
go into the budget
They
process,
have their
you know, if there's
pens
something we missed, we just say,
Their
hey,
marking
we
pens.
missed this, and we need to put it in. You know,
Thank
I
you.
think just with everything else, including what we're gonna discuss at the meeting later today, this isn't, we're not shutting the door on
No.
other ways to deal with housing, deal with goals, or whatever. But let's get a good start on it today.
And as I like to say, life interrupts, so things happen.
Right.
That, you know, nobody puts as a goal, fight a fire.
Right.
But this community's had to,
Or deal with a pandemic.
or deal with the pandemic. Yeah. Even though the governor and the president are going to declare it's over. We all know that, yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, so there are pens up there, I believe.
Okay,
Malik
so we're
is-
gonna start with our most long-term.
Right, the
Okay.
5-year is up there. Take a chart, but stay with the same chart.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
just
put your name
go ahead
on
and
the
right
top.
ahead. I'll keep track of some time, you know.
And, you know, just brainstorm as many things
Yeah,
as
this
you
is
can
the
think
time
of.
to be fun. Put
By
as much stuff as you
5
want to
years
put
from
in there.
now, what do you want to do?
And I'll keep track about 10 minutes worth, and then we'll see where we are.
Before we walk around, what I'd like to do is, because I think a lot of these things are the same, but we said them in different ways. Let's just have, and for the benefit of the kind of people who have come here, let's just have everybody read through theirs, so that if there's any problem, you can't read it, or you didn't really understand it, or have any questions, we'll just read our list, okay? And I think I'll help you too.
Okay.
You're welcome. This isn't my first rodeo with charts. I actually have an aversion to chart paper, actually. So we're going to start with Ron. If you'll just read through your list, and everybody be thinking about your 5 dots and so forth.
So my list, number 1, enhance, revitalize the downtown core as introduced in concept by former council member Kelso Barnett last September 2022. Item 2, continue to seek the creation of workforce housing that presupposes in the previous 4 years we've been able to do it. Number 3, continue to facilitate good change while maintaining the rich fabric of our community we so value. And lastly, continue to maintain in a healthy state our landmark plaza. Those are my...
Very good, Ron.
Thank you so much. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Some similarities. Plaza Master Plan, not dissimilar from what Ron was talking about. I just put down some key elements that really have a 1-year window, but again, they all roll up into the master plan process. Housing, I don't think we're going to solve that one anytime soon. And homelessness, same thing. Police services expansion, obviously that's a annual budget process. And with all due respect to the fire industry, public safety services expansion. Strategic plan, improve traffic circulation, and looking at the growth boundary of the city.
Okay.
Great. Very
Thank
good.
you. Ms. Ferrari-Rivas.
Oh, my goodness. Okay,
on 2
here we go.
pages.
Affordable Housing Fund has purchased property, taken significant steps to meet working families' needs, services, and prevention practices for unhoused are in place. Climate priorities established by the Climate Action Committee have been implemented.
Okay, so this is like what you think should be, this is assuming, okay. So everybody wrote theirs in a different way. Okay, so this is, in 5 years, this is what you...
This is what has happened.
Okay.
This is what
The
Sonoma
vision.
looks like
Okay.
in 5 years.
Okay.
Vision.
Okay, the vision.
This is
Okay.
how I do my vision.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Sonoma is attracting and livable for families of all income levels. Sonoma is attracting new businesses, and local businesses are thriving. New walkways and bike lanes and public transportation to reduce autos by 50%. Sonoma is a model city for climate adaptation and a tourist location. Sonoma has water retention plans in place. Citizens are educated on how to reduce water use. Plan to annex Alvarado Springs. Shelville is complete. Affordable Housing and Climate Adaptation Center at SDC has broken ground. Competitive cannabis industry in Sonoma. Sonoma budget includes strong reserve for funds for emergency. Plan for transition of wine industry due to the climate crisis. There you go.
It's very good. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Ding.
All right.
Sorry.
My 5 years, the goal is a little bit of the visionary. That is what I'm thinking. First of all, in the Sonoma, we are all very proud of our historic town. What it means historic town? First of all, I want to encourage all our community, learn history, understand history, and because it will inspire us, motivate us, move forward. That is so-called invisible assets we never forget. So not only this year is a 200th township. During the past 200 years, we did a lot, whatever they are, with the name or the nameless. So then here, with the focus on innovation and entrepreneurship and inclusiveness. This is the minor summary during the past 200 years our Sonoma has. Second one is diversify our local business. We heavily rely on tourists and hospitality business. It's kind of dangerous because during the past the disasters, we really suffered for this. So possibly, we take this opportunity because right now, digital time, we see if we can use this kind of the trend, we can change our city, our areas, economic and environment. And number three, that making the full use of our the community resources. We are lucky and blessed to have so many educated and the very sophisticated and the creative, our community members. They bring here a lot of experience. We should make a lot of the advantage on this, and also build up a partnership between the public and the private sector. Clear that also mentioned. And number four, that is we should, everything, the city is running out of the blood, that is the money. So now I encourage to carry out conservative financial policies. Right now, we just only have the 2 months and the reserve fund to running. I want to suggest next 5 years, we could increase to 4 months or half year. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so some of mine are big things and some are little things that I think could be done sooner, but it was, since this was spaghetti against the wall, here's my spaghetti. Okay, so increased revenue, and that could be public-private funding, tax options, whatever. New park on the west side, I hope is going to be sooner, but it's there. Slower traffic, transportation shuttle to hotels to decrease the need for parking on the plaza, purchase property to build affordable housing, additional dispensaries, increase art on the plaza and other public spaces, long-term plan for West Napa Street. These two we can do tomorrow if we just do it, which is more trees, and we need some benches on Broadway. And you can't have people walk if they can't sit down. You need benches. Incorporate the springs to the city, lower our carbon footprint, median on Broadway, grass median strip, and look at zoning changes to increase density in the city.
Great.
So anybody have any questions about any of these? We wrote them in all sort of different ways, but there's some things that, you know, I see stand out. So you've got 5 dots, and again, if you absolutely, you know, you run out of dots and you really want to emphasize somebody, just put your initials and put a circle around it next to each thing. So we'll just kind of rotate around.
Rotate around.
And
we'll take a break after you.
And the idea is to put dots on other people's. I've seen, believe me, yes, I taught high school. I know how you want to cheat. Don't put them on your own things, okay?
Well, they have our initials on each sound out.
Yes, okay, yes. But you could do it without. All right, so let's go ahead and
Everybody can change the initials to JD, yes.
and put our 5 dots on there. And let's really think.
Just take your time on that. We're going to take a break, and then while we're doing that, Monique and I and Rebecca will try to summarize what we've seen.
Limited to 5?
Yeah. Or you're not limited. If you want to add more,
if you want more than 5, you can ask me, or you can. I'm trying to manage the expectations. We can give you more on 5 here. We're going to have the landscape architect reorganize the landscape here.
Yeah,
for
for tall people. Yeah.
Clearly.
If you want an extra dot, you can also come to Monique and she'll give you an extra dot. You have to be nice though.
5.
So these will go along the side.
Yeah.
Like for to figure out what the high priorities
Yeah.
Catch up.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some limits. It's just I didn't want to spend all the time criticizing. That's right. If you want a real dot, talk to Mike.
You want a real dot?
Yeah, I'd like 12 more, please.
I don't know about 12.
I'm building coalitions, come on.
What color were you?
Green. Well, you don't actually use them all.
Don't tell anyone else.
Yep. Well, this is our secret.
The 5-year lenient.
There you go.
Yeah, and after that.
Tighten that up for 5 months.
We'll tighten it up after that.
And some of these, since people wrote them, you know, like housing is in each thing, I mean, it's almost like it's an automatic. You know?
Yeah.
That's like.
Yeah, we'll put that all together for you and then summarize it for you.
I mean, like, John put housing, and nobody put a dot, but we all wrote housing, so it
Yeah,
doesn't mean
it's
that we
pretty
don't like
clear
writing.
what's It's pretty darn
Maybe
clear.
we should have met ChatGPT, so.
Homelessness, closet
I'm bad.
No, I just want to get the damn ones done. If we can get them in the 5 months, it's simple to do.
Dave Jeffers to update our EOP. Okay. And we'll want to get you guys.
Yeah, this is already.
So because that's county's
Don't take my, no,
Well,
no, no.
it's actually,
I know.
Page number
you want to
3.
do that.
Yes.
I want it exactly where it is.
types of plans. Don't know if you guys have done anything.
I know it's part of Jack's thing.
Oh, yeah, that's how it's done.
Increased revenue
Yes.
can be public.
That is
And it could be public,
Eight
private,
means
it's
no
all
revenue.
mixed, anything.
That is good.
I don't know if this is
Yeah, that is my
something that Ryan, or if it's better just for us as, you know, to keep at the department level, but when Jim was here, he had developed the,
We should
public
use it up.
safety
or-
power shut off
No, 5, you're
playbook.
supposed to do 5.
Oh, okay, 5 is not.
Department operations, I don't know,
This one.
Some of these
I don't know
are,
what level we're looking to go with this.
We'll
Pretty general.
I get tighter as we get
PSN,
shorter.
I'm fine with
periods of time.
yeah.
Trying
All
not to
right.
get too
This is great.
in-depth.
Okay, so we'll just take a quick look and then we'll
Yeah, let's
send you
take
guys on a break.
yeah, we'll take a quick look, a little summary
Do you
here,
want to
and
see it
then
just
we'll
for
take a break.
reference?
And Monique and I,
And then you
Yeah.
can, you know, borrow, cut,
So
paste,
on
whatever
Ron's
uses you see
chart,
fit. Okay.
we've got dots for the master plan for the plaza, short, and of course, continuing to seek education, workforce housing, and I think that was really
That's a
all
lot
of
of
us
dots
had
on
it.
that.
Yeah. So, again, the master plan for the
Yes.
plaza and plans to deal with homelessness, affordable housing,
more housing, perfect.
again, make it, the vision, Sonoma more livable for families of all income levels, attracting new business, new walkways and bike lanes, and the Sonoma budget, strong reserves for emergency. We've got preservation of history and town spirit, making full use of community resources, and a conservative financial policy, which includes a partnership between public and private. And again, over here, increasing revenue, a wide look at that, slower traffic, increased art on the plaza and other public spaces, and more trees.
Great.
Yeah, and there are several things that are common threads, but what we're going to do is now allow our staff to sort of put this together.
That's right. We'll
And,
review it before we go into year 1.
right.
So take a 10-minute break.
And we'll take this
The
down.
restrooms,
and-
you know where they are. There's food over here, water over here. So,
Yeah, the hallway, the restrooms are in the hallway.
yep.
See, this is why. Okay. Summarized instantly, if you want to take this back and then do
Well,
it.
we want to get it far enough along because
Yeah.
year one is, now these are the 5-year. What do you want to see happen next fiscal year?
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
'Cause that'll
Everybody got
inform
that?
the budget.
Next fiscal year, so
That'll-
this is,
Starting in
Budget.
July, between July 23 to June 24,
okay,
which of those 5-year things do you want to see some action on? And some of you have already started talking about that. The vice mayor is pretty clear. He says, well, I could see these in a year.
right.
So I
okay.
want to see what they are in a year, and then the next step will be, what do you want done before July,
Okay, perfect,
all right?
perfect, yes.
And this will be, we will take it all and get it repackaged and back to you, but, and you're gonna be, I'm gonna be tighter on the dots and the extra.
Well, we should, because the
did five.
first one is so
The first
so
one's,
broad.
I'm
So
fine
this
with
is-
that. It's
So these
broad,
are your
and you guys
budget
have done
goals.
great. I mean, this
Yeah.
is really good work
Yeah,
so
it's
far.
great stuff.
Really
So,
is.
all right, so this is budget year, and there may be things
And-
on there that are not budgetary also.
And
but
we're gonna put the
focus
sheets
on
over here,
budgetary.
so you can meander over,
Okay.
and,
So we're gonna do the same thing where people just go through so that we can read their writing and we sort of know their intent. Yeah, okay. Ron, you're up.
Okay, regarding the downtown core plaza revitalization, A, define process, so we go through. B, define scope of work, including our goals. C, create an ad hoc. D, prepare and send out a request for proposals. E, may end up evolving into a competition where we invite a number of, and then we continue next year, because that's a year with the planning. 2, begin to develop a game plan comprehensive to keep our overused plaza healthy. And 3, with combining building and planning, review process and interaction with public, seek input from stakeholders, create and/or improve public relations.
wow, great.
Very well thought out. Okay.
There's the guy who writes all of these on the.
You're next.
Okay, I think what we're interested in doing as a community is increasing revenue so we can do all the other good work we want to do. I'm coming back to the plaza and studying the concept of conservancy. I think that has some very interesting merits. And I personally think we should get out of the farmer's market business. That's just me, but it's up there. It would take us a year to disengage, I believe. Update, review, emergency plan, that may be something that's in place already, but it never hurts to put it up there. Traffic calming strategies, there are a number of them out there. We've done a couple of traffic studies in the city. I don't know really where they live now, but there are a lot of calming strategies that we should be taking a look at through the Traffic Safety Committee and implementing. Obviously, and I know this is underway to a degree, the refreshment of Plaza and Depot restrooms. West Napa design guidelines. I've had people tell me that it's kind of disappointing to drive down West Napa, and I think I agree with them. And then, of
I'm gonna
course,
put all my dots.
the plaza design, I think Rod even mentioned that, but a possible competition with some universities where they can do a study of the history of Sonoma, develop some concepts that might be very helpful as we look at other elements of the plaza process. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Very good.
Well done, sir.
Well done.
So 1 year. So in the next year, we would want to have affordable housing fund sources identified. I'll go to this one next. Affordable and fair housing tour of similar cities with their solutions, understand their solutions and their challenges. All of our commissions have their priorities and implementation plans and resources identified. General plan drafted in a year. Vacancy tax, transfer tax analysis completed. Plaza master plan completed with public-private partnership. That may be a little bit of a reach in a year, but hopefully. Climate adaptation plan for SDC approved. Task force to create City of Sonoma art master plan. And then zoning code changes to support affordable housing on both east and west sides.
It's great.
Very good.
Okay.
You can see how they begin to align.
Yeah.
Also, that is the first in the affordable housing, especially for very low and low income and those kind of options, because we already accumulated 1 million around the, for affordable housing, but we never use it. And also we needed to, identify another resources you just mentioned. So this one and that one is duplicate. And the second item is the general plan, the revision, because today we went in a past housing element. Next step, and we should look at the general plan, because we already delayed to revise and then our general plan and make sure that we have the very, very clear our goal. And the third one is we continue to support our local nonprofit. I already mentioned, because we have to use a lot of resources. And what they need, for example, in a homeless shelter, and they never got the resources from the city, or very little, $30,000 a whole year for the homeless. So now we should make it more favorable and flexible in the policies to support them. This is the homeless, and also in the sister cities. Sister cities organization represents a lot of our communities, history, and also the good connections globally. We should support them. And also the schools, how we can work together with the school district and other nonprofits. Another one I would suggest, parklets on the policy, we should be reconsidered, because we heard a lot of the comments, and before we terminated parklet last year, still it was in controversy, so we need to work on that. Thank you.
Very good.
I hear a lot of things in here that have to do with the plaza, including parklets. So it's, that when you scribe these together, we can put them. All right, so plan and open the new park on the west side, on the corner of 5th Street West and MacArthur.
That's great.
If you say something enough, I want to put some money aside for polling, because we need to see if any of these things are viable, whether it's a vacancy tax, a transfer tax. In the next year, it costs money to do scientific polling. I see the art plan, that's sort of the similar thing. We can start putting benches out there, maybe partner with people on the benches. I put consolidate homeless services, because we have a lot of different buckets of support for that, often we need to somehow figure out how to consolidate everything. I see traffic mentioned, including some parking improvements, including the shuttle that we've talked about, and then the master plan, which everyone else talked about. So, all right, so now, 5 can be less,
Yeah, it doesn't
no
have-
more than 5. Okay.
And you can put, if you want some more than one dot on one, I guess you could do that, Mayor. But do the 5.
All right, everybody understand
You can
that?
see the math.
The
person
number
that
of
worked here.
stickers less than or equal to 5.
Oh, you don't have to.
Okay?
Yeah, see that, check your 5 minutes.
See, you're talking same to this, for the here.
There's no rush here, take your time looking at it.
Oh, thank God. Pressure's on.
Tricia, are you just doing number 1 in whole?
I'm
Your
just
dot
doing-
over there?
Oh no, I'm doing, yeah, one as a whole. One as a whole.
I thought so, just making sure.
Yes. I could do it.
You were very specific to
it's okay.
that.
Yeah,
We got it.
I wanted to include
You need like that.
that. Yeah, I should get one.
All of her dots are like
Somehow messed up on this one. I'll use mine.
I have an extra dot.
But we can give you another dot.
I'm not going to use it now because this is only fun. Go in the right direction.
Rewrite those? You're pretty much gonna rewrite every one.
It's all right.
I just need one, just for my. All right. All right, it looks like we've got some consensus on some issues here, which is great. So obviously the master plan and the Sonoma Plaza, looks like that is mentioned many times. Traffic and emergencies, West Napa, thank you, thank you, thank you. Did I tell you I live on the west side of Sonoma? I have no idea. Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we've got the sources identified. We've also got analysis of vacancy tax and also polling. So we've got those kind of 3 things are sort of the same, or in the same bucket. Again, the master plan, I've got the task force on art to continue to support.
A lot of support there.
And the parklets, which could be part of the Plaza master plan as well. Homelessness services, art. So I think we've got some strong consensus. There will be other things that
Now, before
will pop up.
before we
Yeah.
try to summarize this and so on, I'm going to ask my leadership team here, do you have, since this is 1 year,
Yeah.
do any of you have any questions
Right, what did we forget
about
too?
the stuff that's up here? Clarifying questions or anything like that? I mean, it's pretty clear where the council wants to go, but if we're not clear on it
Yeah,
ourselves,
please, good call.
we just double, and it's okay to say, I understand it. You know.
I have a comment on the Plaza Master Plan, and one of the things that we may benefit from, because we have a few things right in our crosshairs of near future, is focusing on a plaster mini plan. Because that's going to enable us to get some things accomplished in the short term, but develop enough of that overall comprehensive idea, thought, vision, to where we could take care of a couple of short-term items to keep the plaza moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, so develop enough of, I see the Plaza master plan being a very complex, political, no offense, but very.
Politics is a good thing, it's all right.
Yeah, I could see that being a real hard hurdle to overcome, and it could be very challenging. And so trying to get a refined idea of what a mini plan could look like to accomplish near-term goals in the first year. I'm not talking about 6 months necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, for example, the bathrooms, which were
Right.
bathroom. I mean, we're not gonna wait 5 years to have those bathrooms.
Yeah,
No, and they'll probably show up in the 5-month program. is my
Exactly.
guess.
Bathrooms is more, that's not controversial or political. And we could get, those things could be taken care of without a master plan. And they're already in the hopper. And so, it's more along the lines of, parking, ADA accessibility, even just the AEDs. That was generating comments. That's a life-saving device. But does it look historical? Well, of course it doesn't. It's supposed to be high profile to where you can see it from 100 yards and know exactly what it is you're looking at and be able to get to it real fast, coming to the plaza and visiting just for a day.
Right.
Yeah, and so coming up with that concept of, yeah, it's a historical place, but at the same time, we're not gonna put antique-looking AED devices up there. Yeah, and so really thinking about that and how you combine aesthetics, historical, and avoid all the controversy and get to the end game.
Right.
It's gonna be tricky, and I mean, I could see, like, you know, already some of the council people have talked about ad hoc, and maybe that would be something to try to figure out, okay, what do we wanna do in the short term and get accomplished? And what theme are we talking about? What sort of-
I mean, at least what I'm feeling from the council is, I don't think anybody is opposed to what you're suggesting. I think there are short-term goals, there are long-term
That's right.
goals, but if we don't start, we're not
That's
gonna
right.
get to any of them, so.
And this all really sets right into the budget, and you'll see some short-term things. Anybody else have any questions or don't understand?
That was, that's good.
But thank you.
We're good, yeah.
Otherwise, we'll start consolidating these and get
Okay.
another break while we do that. And I know no one will complain if we don't finish, if we finish early.
Yeah, no, our goal is to finish early.
And the mayor and I say the same thing, start on time, end on time.
Yes, and early is
And
better.
early is okay.
Yes.
Talks in the parking lot. So we'll take another break, grab some more food in that while our erstwhile team here helps.
Yeah,
that's
just
fine.
over here. Yeah.
So what you have is, this is the 1 year, new park on west side, and you saw what she wrote as the map. Consolidate homeless services, begin plaza master plan with public-private partnership, art expansion in public spaces, task force putting together an art master plan, traffic and parking improvements, including the shuttle to the plaza and traffic calming, polling for revenue viability, very important, scientifically statistical polling to see what is going to go or not. Parklets policy resets, continue to support our nonprofits for homeless, sister cities, schools, and other nonprofits that we work with. Affordable housing funds sources identified. So it's 1 year. General plan, we may not make beyond the first draft. General plans, I've seen go as long as 4 years sometimes, but I think we can do this one quicker. And we got the proposals in, so. Update and review emergency plan, West Napa design guidelines, study conservancy for the plaza, downtown core plaza revitalization, and then there's a series of steps. So this is what you have for the 1 year. Now we want you to go to work on the next 5 months that align, but it's stuff you want done now to begin to get the 1 year and 5 year moving along.
Okay.
And we'll do a similar thing.
Right, and so these are the two that we know we're gonna do, because, you know, this is
Right.
coming up. Yeah, notice,
We
you
gotta
said
figure out
you
how we're
said
gonna
it
play
correctly,
with this.
Mr. Demler.
Yeah.
200th anniversary.
The state's
our
gonna do
commission.
this anyway, so we gotta figure out how we're gonna play with it.
How are we gonna play along with that?
Yep.
And then, what else are we gonna do in the 5 months?
5
that we
months.
have?
That's why you have 3 dots, because you already got 2 of them
Right,
taken.
so, in other words, yes. I like it.
That is the old one, you know, never
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Thank you. Okay, so let's read through what we have, and,
Then we'll have more dots.
and then we'll do 3 dots this time, right? Because 2 of them have already taken care of. And if you insist on having 4 dots, that's okay. All right, so.
You gotta
Mr.
bargain
Wellender.
with Monique.
I have 4 left. Go for it.
Well, for that, I
I'd
have a
like to
full left.
comment on number 1 and make our lives easier. Let's just talk Mr. Linder from coming out of retirement for the last 5 years. That'd be my recommendation.
That's right, 5 months is good.
And is that a reflection of who you're dealing with?
No, it's a reflection that you all want to get some things done.
Maybe. My first one, I know that one of the requests from the previous council was to take advantage of your fresh eyes and kind of look at our existing structure and just kind of evaluate it and see what other needs we may have. My speculation, and this is what I started to write, but I can say it better, is that thanks to my favorite city in the Sacramento Valley, we have more work that we can handle. And that cheats us as far as getting work done on our projects. And so I would love to see what we can do about that.
Okay.
Item number 4, I'm stealing it from John because he'll say I stole it. The Casa Grande parking lot, and try to resolve the parking issue of whether or not they're going to extend the lease, whether their threat of adding parking meters becomes a reality. And so that's that one.
And you saw my options.
And then the 5th one is regarding the general plan in the next 5 months, to really take a look at the existing general plan and assess what areas, if at all, are still relevant to the general plan, and then, of course, identify those areas where we need to update. And that's it.
Very good.
Good. Thank you.
All right, we'll jump to number 3. I'm just a traffic enforcement kind of guy. One of the things we heard during the campaigns, that the traffic is horrible and
You bet.
blah,
You
blah,
must
blah.
have been a chief at one point.
So, yeah, I was. So I support that.
Any drugs?
And I realize there's funding associated with that, so stand by. Pedestrian crossing on Broadway. Now, I know that we're actually making some progress on that. Thank you very much. And, but the
No, it's
other
good.
element of that now has become the lighting.
Yes.
You cannot see the pedestrians at nighttime,
Mm.
whether
Yes.
they're crossing by the
Absolutely.
plaza or even the other ones. You know, you may have the flashing signs,
No.
but the lighting is horrible, and I don't know
It is.
how to address that, but I should.
It's
That's all right.
thank you.
That's why it's up there.
Organizational assessment, going back to what Ron was saying, you may have been charged with that by the previous council, and that's related to number 8, which talks about staff stability and succession planning. And I think we need to do a better job of that, and also, you know, what can we do to make people enjoy their jobs more and stay here and contribute. Homeless fund, Casa Grande parking lot as well. I'm more interested in how we secure that at nighttime with a gate, and but I know there's some discussions going on around now. Blah, blah, blah. Agendize, yeah, this cannabis store thing, I'm frankly tired of hearing about it. Let's talk about it, resolve it, move on. Okay? And support the Catalyst Fund. And this is kind of part of that public-private partnership. This is a fund that's here in the community. It kind of started through the Rotary and some other organizations, but we should be supporting that as a way to provide homeless funding and some of these other emergency kinds of things that we need funding for. And that concludes my comments.
Well done.
Very good.
All right. Ms.
Yeah.
Farrar Rivas.
That's great, the 13.
Yes, those are very good. Part of all other ones that I want to add now.
You have dots.
You have dots, that's why we have
I have
dots.
dots. No, they're slightly different, anyway. So, okay, public safety, as there it is, Broadway, safe crossing light, both. New commissions, charters drafted. So, fire season assessment and implementation plans, which could also include kind of communication to the public. Review nonprofits providing services and funding because of COVID, inflation, all of that. They are all really stressed in regards to their functioning, increase organizations if needed, or consolidation of some organizations. I encourage that. We can't make that happen, but encourage that, help it along. Safety, speed limit enforcement. I've been sitting next to John for a long time. Become part of, although I appreciated that long before. Upgrade city bathrooms, visit Norway. I invite you to do that. You can send me if you want. They have great bathrooms. Parking signs, directing visitors to off-plaza parking. Advisory public meetings for the new commissions that had 20-plus people wanting to be on those commissions. How do we get more voices into some of the priorities those commissions may want to send? Housing zones revised, I put that up last time, didn't get a dot, so I put it up again. Second, cannabis RFP. So I actually moved it to an RFP actual. And then join county homeless and housing efforts. Ones if we're not already there.
So anything that's written on two people's charts should go on that. So I didn't put a dot on your housing zone revived because I also wrote about housing zones, so that will be, that gets to be an item, okay? That's like a dot if it's done twice. Okay, Mr. Ding.
All right, yeah. Again, I suggest we start research on the parklet and the policy to be restarted. The second one is affordable housing fund. We should to be identified again, do some more research. And then the homeless consolidation, that means put in the parties, HAS, SOS, and FISH program. And of course, we got a huge support from the country. And right now, I'm the member of a COC. I can provide more information. I will start right away. And the next one is in the plaza and the bathroom needed fixed right now. And then the city and the reserve the fund to be reviewed. For sure, the reserve fund will be increased very soon because I know out of the income from the TOT tax right now is increased. And also I don't want to spend more for the other area which we haven't planned yet, but put on the reserve fund. Always the number one concern. And the last one, that is free Wi-Fi. That is my idea 2 years ago. And we started from the plaza. And then hopefully in the city, in the boundary with the Springs, that area, and also we can bring all community together. This program has been successfully built and in other cities, in St. Andrews, they built more than 10 who paid, the city paid, but the local communities got the benefit. And also in the Sonoma County and Hillsburg city, they already has two free. So now I want to current city manager continue on the previous connections with the experts, with the management company, and see we can start it. Okay. And also we can get a fund and grants and from the federal infrastructure fund. Yes. Yes. Do some of the research.
Yep.
And thank you for bringing that back. That goes to your, John, your original question. What did we have before? And there's one right there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so. I have art in the city council chambers. This is going to begin in February. We have some photographs in there now. Our Sonoma treasure from last year, Pat Meyer Johnson, will be featuring her paintings in February in the Sonoma council chamber. And in March, it will be student art, and then it will go to that's just to kick it off, and then in the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission will then be in charge of, that ongoing. So that's kind of in process, and I just wanted to give you a little heads up on that because that's just a small way to incubate this whole art idea. Again, upgrade the bathrooms. Traffic safety improvements. I agree with what everyone said. I walked from my house to the Sonoma Plaza last Friday in the evening, and it was nearly hit 3 times. And I mean, literally,
it was the same person?
No. Excellent question. Get off my Wikipedia page. No, but that's a good question.
It's hard to see it.
It was really scary. And I wasn't, and I waited until I saw people, but then other people ran stuff. It was very scary. So this lighting thing is important. And then I have this thing called Bug Caltrans. You may have noticed that several of the main arteries through our town are state highways, so we're going to really have to deal with Caltrans on an ongoing basis, and I'm more than happy to be a thorn in their side. Input for the park that's going to be developed at 5th Street West and MacArthur, we need to get some public input in terms of what would they like to see there. We can start funding the benches and the trees for West Napa, consolidation of the homeless, I agree with that. I got a note from Petaluma to come look at their LaBath Landing, and I think we should take a look at what they have over there. And then we should just start a plan for the revenue pool in the study, just like finding a consultant, what do we want in there, so that we're ready to do it in the next fiscal year. Okay, all right, so we got 3 dots, and then we're going to talk about the historic mission.
That's great.
3 dots, and I will check again with the
Great.
leadership team to make sure everybody understands.
Yes, please, absolutely.
And you don't need to put dots on the first 2,
Right, don't, and anything that's...
or anything that's
said-
obvious,
Yeah.
we can see that, so it's just... Take your time.
Do you need my cord? I have my cord. Shoot.
Trying to sort out our organizational study.
Yeah.
Here's something to ask for.
Yep, so yeah, that was...
Let's see, was it mentioned twice up there already?
Yeah, it's already up there twice. Maybe we could need a sister city in Norway so that we can then...
I know, I'll volunteer for that one. Check the bathrooms.
Well, I heard Patricia volunteered to go to Norway.
Yeah, we can be with Us. My brother-in-law, they live on that island.
Okay.
I know the folks there. Near Bergen.
But I hear, I think Councilmember Dean can find a sister city in Norway. for
I'm
you.
sure.
Yes.
Well, there's this Vacaville, when we were talking to the mayor of Vacaville, the mayors and council members, we're Ron and I were saying that we should be sister cities with Vacaville because they have the best biotech. It's like their bio industry is just unbelievable. We were laughing about that. We're like, do they have to be in another state?
Traffic safety.
Just one.
Yeah, it's different.
Council members want to appoint whoever.
Unless you want to just kind of give it a little...
If you didn't see it on last week, it's whoever.
Are any of the people who are on the Arts Commission, are all,
There's
somebody
an individual already
so
on
somebody
there.
who is on who's outside the city?
Free.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, free the
Free the... No, free the
When you're sitting in the park, you're going to need one.
they always tell me raising money. I already see that. People and supporting sister cities.
He's lobbying here now.
Yes.
Shameless.
I think we get the idea that traffic and traffic calming and lighting.
They're actually looking at a
I'm
consolidation.
not kidding you. One of the crosswalks was
Consolidation.
First Street West and Next
I
Street.
have a bit of
And
some of my
there's a
staff had heard, I
crossing
think. I know that name is familiar, that they were necessarily
And
which is like,
this car is going to go separate. Right, I mean, she just, and that's the most lit up area. And she was I was with Melanie, and the 2 of us we walked from We're used to doing it at the side now. Right. All right, so our staff is going to compile these, but just quickly, I think, assessing sort of where we are with staffing and so forth. I think that's great. We've got some of that in, obviously, more attention on our homelessness situation, tons of stuff about safety and crossing the streets and lighting, working with the nonprofits, looking at our parklet and seeing if we want to bring that back, bringing back the free Wi-Fi idea, and everybody wants me to bug Caltrans, I'm all in, and planning for the revenue. And then there's some things that are written twice. So anything that's written twice, it's like, is a given, and we'll get those together, and then we'll have our last section of comments regarding,
The 200 years.
yeah,
And then we'll do a final
we'll do a
comment.
final,
And we'll have you out of here on time.
we'll be out of here, yes, and because we have another meeting.
3:30. I guess.
All right, so you can meander outside, take another break while we're consolidating all this.
Great.
All right.
And then it's grind it out.
Check your email.
Yeah. Just so people know where we're going next, Laurent, we're gonna go through these, make sure we got them, the council, and then we're gonna check with staff to see if they understand it. Then we're going to do an exercise using the 5 sheets, but we're gonna work around what do we do with the state parks related to the mission? All right, so let me go through these real quick.
Thank you.
So this is 5 months, so yes, this is my work assignment.
Your marching orders.
And Laura's. Laura and I are in the 5-month world here.
Okay.
Art in the council chambers. It's happening, we're working on that now, on the issues related to that. Upgrade the plaza bathrooms. Traffic study improvements, lighting, speed limit enforcement, pedestrian crossings, with a particular thing around 5th and Broadway. Revenue poll, get a plan how that's going to be done, who can do it for us. A parklet policy reset, looking into free Wi-Fi, that's for the community. Homelessness, funding, consolidation, and continued support. And by consolidation, I think what I'm hearing is that they integrate their services and work together.
Correct.
Right? Organization assessment, that's an internal organization. Do we have the people to do the work that has to be done, and in the right places and so on? Staff stability and succession planning. One of the things I like to do, besides an exit interview, is a stay interview. So we might do something like that, and talk to people and say, so what do we need for you to stay? So it's an interesting exercise and useful. Revisit the general plan. It's taking a look at what might be already there, what we want to really look at. We already have the proposals are in, so we'll be looking at those. And everybody wants to deal with cannabis. I think that was like 5-zip. Let's get this cannabis thing moving so that these people can go home. Visit the council meetings all the time. Yeah. Review of nonprofits, and this is the support, groups that we give support to. And we're already in the mix of asking them to do their annual plan for us. Their annual report is actually. Housing zones revised and revisited. The mayor has volunteered to bug Caltrans, and everybody said fine, so we get that. And the Casa Grande parking lot and what's going to go, and everything here, not only the parking, but the gates and the safety and so on. Now, does that sound okay for the 5 of you before I turn to the others?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Now, about for the staff that's here, any questions on any of these? Yes, Laura?
On 13 there, housing zones revised, I'm not totally understanding what you mean by
question.
that.
Patricia, one of yours
I think
was
it's
much
one of
more
yours,
in-depth.
Patricia.
Yeah, so I would actually like to see more in the single home zoning areas, so that all to be changed to allow for
Thank you.
multi-unit housing.
So just looking at our zoning to see if we can have more multi-use, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, more multi-use housing, because most of the multi-use housing is on the west side, there's not enough on the east side, so it's still lopsided with the general plan. But that will, I'm sure, be discussed this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that we have to do it, but we have to start the revision, looking at where it is and so on. Yes?
Yes. I have I would like to advocate for our the nonprofit organization Sister Cities and Sonoma Ting Chinese Pavilion project.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's inside
And
Sister
thank you
Cities.
today you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I include to continue to support Sister Cities project. The Ting project was approved 5 years ago. It's kind of a Sister City Penglai Committee is a gift to the city to honor those Chinese laborers who are working in this town 150 years. They were nameless, even they couldn't find a place to be buried. We honor them, and the city granted a piece of the land just across the street of the Depot Museum. So the original the plan, they already raised enough the money, but after the Wi-Fi, after pandemic, all the price cost increasing a lot, labors and the material. Right now, it's a huge gap. So the Sister City right now already hired grant and a writer, and they try to get the fund from the nonprofit or from the person. But it's definitely we need a city's support, because this is not only the Sister Cities project, it's all on the community support.
Can we, I think, since that's another one of the things that was carried over from the previous, without objection, can we add that, please, to the list? To finish the Ting project in Depot Park? Because that fits in with so many of the other things that we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Ding, for reminding us of that.
Ting, T-I-N-G?
T-I-N-G,
Yeah.
the Chinese pavilion.
Chinese pavilion.
All right, anything else from the staff before we turn over to our next exercise?
Anything else we missed?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things about parklets. And
okay,
this there was a lot of criticism about the parklets and their appearance. And I've kind of been looking at other agency parklets, and one of the things that makes them less noticeable, and that was part of what one of the complaints was that they stuck out like a sore thumb. And I think that we have to be really careful about how we proceed with that, because we should really come up with a consensus to putting them out in an island in the right-of-way, which is where they were before, and how that's going to look, and come up with a plan for how it's going to appeal and not be a sore thumb. Because it's going to be a real challenge. And if you look around, the good parklets are the ones that are tucked back, out of the travel way. Typically, they take 4 or 5 parking stalls, and it'll be somewhere where it can be strategic, to where you just lose 4 or 5 parking stalls. It doesn't encroach on the right-of-way, and it's not out in the middle of an area like it was. And so working with the business community and Mark, the chamber, and make sure that we really think this through before we jump forward. Because we could spend a lot of money pretty quick and come up with a standard and then put that parklet out in the road, and we'd be, wow.
So I think what the council member is looking at is just the policy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
and
this
we may
policy.
decide
To
not
your
to.
point.
Yeah, and if the policy is to determine whether or not we want to put them in, I think that we really got to focus on, because that is a very hard spot to put those things and not have them look like a box separated from everything else. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
So going really slowly is, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
just
we
need
will
to-
owe the council
Yeah.
how
And
this can all happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
even some of the restaurant owner, they are ready to pay for the action, because some of the retail store, they don't get this kind of benefit. They said we can pay.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Patricia, you had something?
No, we're good.
I was going to only say one other thing about that. I think that the idea is to look at kind of the broad idea of outdoor dining.
Yes,
And how it
exactly.
works.
Yeah, it's a
And
bigger
how it will
issue.
work. And so then look at it that way, and so it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is a parklet.
Right.
But how does that happen?
Yeah,
Especially in
and
the
it
case
could
of
be,
another
and it also
pandemic.
could be like delivery, like we've talked about, the people who are now taking up 2 parking spaces for delivery, that's also taking up 2 parking spaces.
Yeah, and that's something that we're looking at in the parking management plan, drop off. And then also, remember, Alfresco had 3 components. It had parklets, it had sidewalk dining, and it also had on-site dining. And I know that Laura's working with her group on 2 of those components. The parklet one is done. And, but the other 2 components, the sidewalk dining and the on-site dining, you know, those are also outdoor dining.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're talking in general about all of those things.
And what we'll do for you is come back with, you know, how we can make move these things along, as well as doing all the other stuff we're doing. Okay?
That is right.
All right, now,
So-
Mayor, do you
so
want to take command of this
before-
next one?
Yeah, before we do this, this was a long time and people have been sitting very patiently. And I know that there may be some comments, and so I am going to open it up for 1-minute quick comments if anyone from the public has anything to say before we move on. Yes, Ms. Salon.
I wanted to make a friendly amendment to the term consolidation when it comes to nonprofits. It's a technical term and it creates a huge amount of fear if you approach nonprofits that way. They all have their own independent 501c3 status, and so if that term could be changed to collaboration, I think you will get a much better response.
Okay, well put. And I don't think we're married to any of these terms. We're just,
Yeah, this.
yeah, spaghetti against the wall.
And I
Yes.
also want to say the same thing about the homeless, because I think cooperation rather than consolidation, because you're already seeing that type of cooperation even between commercial business owners and homeless advocates. And each one has their own special niche that they're focusing on and getting them all together rather than it being a top-down. I guess that's what that was.
Yes, okay, Ms. Paniagua.
I would like to address like the parklet issue, because Sonoma Williams, they've got those great rocking chairs, so it doesn't have to necessarily be a bench. And I think the more gardeny or plant kind of atmosphere is better than some of the stuff I saw around the plaza. I mean, it was god-awful ugly, some of them. And along like the road, the path that runs parallel to the Friar Creek bike path, maybe some benches on there and maybe even more on the bike path itself too.
More benches.
There's not enough.
I'm with you. Yes, Mr. Demley.
3 things, if I can remember. I'm from Texas, so I only may get 2. I support the comments about the consolidation issue.
Cooperation.
Where Sonoma League is cooperating very well with the sister cities and with the Sonoma Sunrise Rotary. So I would like the city to encourage interaction and working together between the nonprofits. Secondly, the parklets, I said several times publicly and in writing, they look like third world. Ideally, it would be wonderful if we could do away with all of the parking on the exterior of the plaza, the outside, and have parking head in all around the plaza on the inside, and let people, and actually extend pavement out. Anyway, that's the ideal, expensive, maybe not workable. And thirdly, if the city's going to take on anything to do with the 200th anniversary of the mission, they need to work with state parks. State parks had an initiative called Mission 200. I went to 2 meetings. They then dropped it. It's been very quiet. I think they got some flack about the Native Americans. I'm not sure. It should also be within the purview of the St. Francis Solano Catholic Parish, because they
Yes.
evolve from the mission. Anyway, be very careful, and if you do it, you need to have a representative of some of the Miwok, coastal Miwoks, Pomo, or whatever. Nick Tippon is one of the elders who's worked with a lot of people in Sonoma. You need to have them involved, or you need not to do it.
Great, and thank you. Your comments are
Right on
appropriate,
point.
right on time. We're gonna deal with it. And Mark, I'm sorry.
Very briefly, as you guys are getting into the general plan update, one of the things that the city has not updated in a long time is our economic development strategic plan. I think it was last updated in 2002. Many of the firms that do general plan updates as consultants also do those, and there may be good cost savings if we kind of lump those together. I don't know if there's a little bit of extra money to include that in the process.
It's included in.
Sweet. Thank you.
Well done. Excellent. All right, you guys are great, and thank you to the public for putting up with this. So we're on to the next thing. And I wanted a very inclusive city council, and I think today has really exemplified that, and thank you all for everything. So, it is the 200th anniversary of the mission. The confusion of the dates, thank you for clarifying those earlier, because we had that, we have pins at the city that are different, and so that was very helpful. And but it is going to be a big deal, so let's get some.
Madam Mayor, you
Yeah.
also have two city seals.
Yes,
One of them is
yeah.
printed, it's got 1823, wrong. The other one is the gold foil, it's got 1846, also wrong. Stand by, I'm working on it.
And I have noticed all of that, so thank you. That has been a source of confusion for me as well, and would like to get to the bottom of it. And since no one was probably around in 1823, we're just going to have to rely on our friend from our native Texan. All right, so let's get some ideas up here. That it is the 4th of July, I believe, is the date of the anniversary, which coincides with another very important holiday. So let's, if we could sort of focus on what we might want to see out of the 4th of July and some of the other things.
How we work with the state parks.
State parks and
what
so
we do with all of that.
And
So
then
it's creativity time again.
Right, and I don't think we're gonna do dots on these,
No.
this is just to get your ideas up there so that we'll go through them all, okay? On what we should do
It's
for
kind of
the
an exercise
end.
in how we might look at other issues.
Yeah.
And council working.
Right, we just don't wanna go ahead and start planning on this without your
Association
input.
does the
Okay.
4th of July. They do the plaza celebration. They do the parade and then the fireworks show at night. It's a really, really fun event.
Oh, cool.
It's super fun.
That's
Yeah.
what she was saying.
And it's carefully controlled, so it's safe. It's safe.
Yes.
Just I can never get the fire
Come from some cities that have so many problems with fireworks.
Yeah.
Illegal.
Uh-huh.
So what we have to do with these 16.
I didn't want to shout out again, but July 4th is
I've already got someone telling me to take away the statue, so let's not go there.
1807.
Let's not go there.
That was quick.
Yeah. I'm just telling you,
Yeah, she sent me a note, so she's got a record. So these were just collecting, we'll put us in kind of consolidation together and generally look at it. He's working towards, she's on the touch with they're the guiding body.
Oh, I can see you kind of like holding your breath.
It's really fun.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Oh, yeah, well, I got it out of Sarah printed it from the website. I mean, there's a lot of different dates.
It's been an ongoing discussion, and unfortunately, those pieces were those plans. I did the
I know. I've explained.
I would give you this, but
It'd be nice to have one city to see.
the city still
It was funny, in Windsor, we had the Windsor tree, but somebody started playing with quail. So if you go to our website, you see quail. I said, look, our logo is the tree, so we can't, but some things you just can't get done in 7 months. I don't know who came up with the quail, I guess they run around the trees. They run around where we live in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
They're little babies. They're just cute.
And just the cable tray. The cable tray for
This is great.
This is one of the source.
See, because
Last night I woke up.
I think there should be a separate power conduit.
An exercise.
Because you get some.
and this will just put all this together. Jenny and I, we don't need to vote on it.
No, unless there's something there that you really read it. Otherwise, stay with it. And then we'll see. Wrap up
But I have a feeling that there was, I saw the study. There is a lot of controversy, that's the problem. But I think that's, it helps us if we get ahead of it.
How bishops get in trouble for going against that.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back.
A little bit. I'm not 100% sure of that. Because sometimes it does pose a little. I know. Why are you doing this? I know, I got up at lunch because I knew I was going to.
Thank you.
I did too.
All it was.
Yeah, need another one, right? It's 6, but you're right.
During that song.
Yeah.
Put a little sign up.
Okay, as long as.
You'll go against the Greens.
Yes.
I bet. Which is good. Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. I have practice.
Oh, it's at 6 o'clock, so maybe it's
All right.
okay, it's at 6 today. Okay, cool.
Now, before we finish this, I'd like to see any comments from police, fire, anyone else regarding any of this that we should make sure is up here. This is a brainstorm. We're not going to pick which ones are the most important. This is just to
You want to
help
have them walk through it?
inform us. Yeah, well, oh yeah, let's walk through it, please.
And then we'll get police and fire.
Thank you,
Yeah,
of course,
that's okay.
absolutely. Because no one can read my writing. What am I thinking? Okay, yeah.
So item number 1 is to have the theme for the parade reflect the mission anniversary. Please note it was John's second one and not his first one. So
You guys got to stop talking to each other.
City sponsor a legitimate float that might depict and reflect the mission and history. Have a student art competition for all ages regarding the history of mission. Print out a brochure of high quality and content and relatively brief description or information describing the mission, history, and its significance to Sonoma today, and thank you.
All right.
Okay, all right.
Wonderful.
John?
Well, this came at me right out of left field, so, but the things that popped into my mind is who will attend said anniversary.
To your point about.
I keep wanting to use the word celebration, and I'm afraid that might just attract more negativity. But the issues, and I go back to the sesquicentennial for the city. I mean, we had security issues, we had protests, we had stakeholders that you've got to get out in front of this and meet with these people right away. Theme for the parade, I just threw that in. That could be a relationship to the parade. And what's the impact on the 4th of July celebration? Because there are a lot of people who really enjoy that celebration. And I'd be curious, what are other missions doing? It seems to me everybody south of us should have celebrated this.
They have, yeah.
And And so perhaps there's some good information out there that can guide us.
Sandra Phelps did theirs, what, 5, 6 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, so that's good stuff. Thanks.
Very good, yeah.
Okay, Patricia.
So I would like the focus to be completely on recognition of indigenous people and to consult with the Pomo and the Miwok tribes.
Okay.
And maintain the focus of the parade solely on the 4th of July. And to use the plaza as to have indigenous art and historic exhibitions about the history of the Pomo and the Miwok and the Wapo. All of the tribes that came to Sonoma, from my understanding, is Sonoma was a place for them to come and celebrate before, the Europeans landed on this land, and that this was really, a place where people came, all the different tribes came together. And so to try to bring that up as the theme.
Okay. Great.
My folks on out in the community in the celebration, we try to stay away from those controversial and political issues, because we know and Jose Altamira came to here and we built up to the new community, and then we started a new period of the time. So I still prefer when we're not using, we could using our local, we can use celebrate instead of commemorate. That is an official word by the state and the park. But we are just folks on our community. Just try to stay away. And of course, it's the time for us, for all our community to review how important inclusiveness and how to work with other peoples, how much sacrifices are made by our ancestors here. Thank you.
All right, and then I'm going to add one to mine, because that reminds me. Okay, that's cheating, I know. I did it. All right, so I agree with Patricia regarding we need to involve the Native people who were affected by this. We do need to talk to St. Francis. I know they're already planning something, so we do need to coordinate with them. And we do need to talk. I see focus of parade, not focus of parade. We got to talk to the people who are putting together the parade to see what they think about it. I think we have found that state park study that you referenced. We just need to know what's become of it, or if anybody ever did anything with it with the state. And we need to have a program that's both historic and that is balanced, because it's not just one version of history, it's the full thing. And I think we need to plan for the date of the Pueblo. Now, did I get the date right, Mr. Demler? Is it 35 or 25? 35. Yeah, so we need to, it's a long way off, but at least let people know that's coming. And then need to talk to state park and other agencies, and then just having listened to what you had to say, I mean, wouldn't this be perfect if we could also commemorate the Ting at the same time? That would be a really wonderful piece to add in to this commemoration, to give our whole historic thing. Yeah. So, anyway.
Very good.
All right, so we'll take all of these things and keep the comments flowing, and we'll start working on this.
So to wrap it up,
yes,
and then we'll see where the mayor wants to wrap further in the council. So as she said, this will go to the team that we put together that's working on this, and we appreciate our historian getting us correctly focused, and I could see it's reflected up here.
Yes, that's great.
I also appreciate the diversity of thinking that's going up here. It's very good. And then we'll take these 16 and figure out what we can actually do within those, and report back to you on that.
Great.
And we'll do the same with the 1 year in terms of feeding it into the budget process. We'll get that scheduled to you next week, since my finance person's at a conference this week learning things. So,
sounds good.
Anything? Yes.
If I could,
yeah, we wanted you to comment.
May I take
make
Yeah,
a couple
go
of
for it.
comments.
Yes,
So,
please.
just so everybody's aware, just a little bit of history about the current 4th of July celebration. The Sonoma Volunteer Firefighters Association has taken that over and run with everything. The plaza celebration, the parade, and the fireworks. We've done the fireworks for almost 50 years, but
Wow.
in 2017, our volunteer association took on the plaza celebration and parade because the community center was no longer able to do that, and there was a big gap. There was nobody else stepping up to continue those elements of our 4th of July celebration. So every year we go through a planning process with our volunteer association. We meet with state parks, law enforcement, Caltrans, everybody, stakeholders, to plan the event in great detail. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to engage in that process. We do everything from coming up with a theme for the year. Last year was honoring essential workers, through the pandemic as an example. And then we also do a grand marshal for the parade, as well as we kind of handpick judges that are related to the theme. And so I think there's some opportunities there that
That's very
we
helpful.
could continue with, the focus of the parade being the 4th of July and the entrance, which it always is, but we could, in a very tasteful and respectful way, also have the theme maybe commemorating the 200th year of the mission and the Coast Miwok and other native peoples. So there's a lot of different things and opportunities that we can do for that. Having the exhibits on the plaza that commemorate and honor some of the ideas that were put up there, that's, I think, a pretty easy one to do. So there's, I welcome, on behalf of the association, I would welcome those inputs and that engagement to really plan an event that, to continue to have an event that the community really gathers for and appreciates, and then we can, in the right way, weave in the 200th anniversary of the mission.
That sounds elegant, and thank you.
Get you involved early.
And I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it really could go sideways in a hurry. So that sounds great. And even though I know it's volunteer firefighters who organize this, as you know and have heard at various city council meetings, it really doesn't matter. They think we're doing it. They think it's the city. In fact, they think it's the city if there's a problem, on Boys Boulevard. So it doesn't matter. So we have to get in front of it, so at least we're informed of it, so that we can tell people the proper way to get their input and so forth. Because it doesn't matter, they're going to think it's the city anyway. So let's work together from the beginning, and I think it'll make for a great event.
And we do every year. Like
Yeah.
Lisa is the special events
Lisa,
coordinator. She
right.
is always in those meetings from very, very early
That's
on.
fantastic.
And so,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yep, absolutely.
And it is considered the best 4th of July.
It is, right?
So, so in that way, other cities really, like how it happens, and this year it is going to have a really strong effect, not just here, but out
Yeah.
in the whole
It's the best.
state.
It's the best fireworks,
It's
it's
the
the
best.
best parade, the best town, and, and
Yeah.
now they're throwing us something else in the works, we'll just take it and run with it, and we'll make it great. Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for
Thank you.
everything that you do, appreciate it.
Anything else from staff on this? What about you, Chief?
Well, from the law enforcement side, I think it's start to finish time is a hard thing for us. The more expanded that gets, the harder we have on staffing. It's obviously a holiday weekend. We have other events, other places for the sheriff's office to bring us extra bodies.
Yeah,
So
that's
if we
good.
can just try to keep that start and finish of the day, kind of where it is. I know it probably doesn't expand much more because the parade starts early and the fireworks end late. So anything in between there, I think we can game plan and work on ways to be preventing these other issues that could come up. this community doesn't have a big protest community. Protests out here are people
Not yet.
speaking and talking, not yelling and breaking. So, mostly, so far. So far.
Yeah, so far.
So the 4th is on a Tuesday
Tuesday.
this year, huh? Okay.
All right.
Anybody else from the staff team on this?
Anybody else from the community?
Community?
Thank you. We'll be talking, yes, Mark.
I just want to thank Mayor Lowe and council members and Mr. Linder and staff. This is really like the most robust, deep dive, organized, goal setting session that I can remember. I think it's really cool, and so appreciate you guys taking time to do this.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. It really helps, I think, the citizens connect with the council and the leadership team, and I really wish more of our citizens were here. And I'd love to see more engagement at sessions like this on an annual basis.
Well, you just have to tell everyone how much fun it was.
I already did.
They can watch
Tell
it.
them we served wine at the breaks. And there were fabulous door prizes. And they really did.
I know, really.
They can watch it when we get it posted, whenever that'll be. So
It's gonna be a new Netflix series.
Thank you.
Watch the Sonoma Council. So much
So thank you all.
And we're happy to see
Thank
the
you.
public here. So thank you.
We're only as good as,
That's right.
everybody in the community participating and letting us know what's on their mind. Because we take it to heart, as you could see from today. All right, I think we'll take we're in recess and we will reconvene at 6 o'clock on the other side of the building and.
For the housing